Why you need to watch anime instead of Marvel. I was thinking back to when I was a kid and when I was doing Taekwondo and I was really serious about it. I thought about how I always tried really, really hard, and I don't know exactly what the difference was between me or some other kids in training. I think part of it was maybe trying to make my dad proud, but I had a lot of roadblocks. I was not very talented at the sport. I was not gifted physically. I couldn't even run very well. Like when I was 8 or 9, I remember my dad was teaching me how to run properly by lifting my knees more. There's a lot of technique I had to restudy versus my sister, who seemed to pick up techniques really fast. So I'd be in classes behind her and she would get a lot of praise for being good. But for myself, it was always like, oh, like we bring Chris along because Kim's really good, so Chris can also train too, so we can train with Kim. And I was always essentially the runt of the pack. But as I got older and older, I kept training hard, and eventually I started to get better, and the rest is really history. And I was trying to think back to what really instigated me to go do that. And part of it, I believe, was trying to make my dad proud, which I think all children or sons should strive to make your father proud, obviously exceptions excluded. But what I thought about deeply, and a lot of the programming that had come in around the age of 12, 13, right around the time we stopped listening to our parents and we start listening to outside sources, was I started watching different action animes. I started watching more Dragon Ball Z, I watched Naruto, I watched Bleach. Later there's My Hero Academia. There's also Haikyuu, which they got rid of on Netflix, which is a shame, but that was a fantastic anime. And I realized, before you guys click off, you're like, oh, this kid's a nerd. Listen, if you haven't watched anime, listen to this first. The reason I want you to watch animes over Marvel is because in Marvel, all the superheroes in Marvel were gifted the skill. Tony Stark, you don't really see him struggle. He kind of just shows up as a billionaire. Batman's a billionaire and has to invent stuff. The Flash I don't even know the Flash's origin story, but he can run super fast. The Hulk was part of a chemical experiment, I believe. I don't even really know because I don't really watch. But what my understanding is, all these people were born or gifted their powers. In anime, it's different. All of the heroes in the animes I really like, or if you ask any other fighter who watches anime, all the animes they really like are stories of the person who sucked really, really bad and trained and got better, found some friends, found adversaries, went back to training, got stronger, made more friends, went to that same challenge again, and they kept training and getting better. And I thought back to how much that had affected me as a Taekwondo athlete. Now, there are times where I felt like alone, and so I could relate to Naruto being alone, or there's times where I would get beat up. And I remember this back when I was, I want to say 12, we started going to a place called Manila Taekwondo. And that's where our eyes got really open, or I think I was 8. But anyway, that's when our eyes got really open to what Taekwondo fighting really was. There wasn't any promise sparring. Like, these guys were going ham as kids, and that's where I was super shocked, and I just got the crap beaten out of me. And one of my cousins said, you know what makes Goku so strong, Goku from Dragon Ball Z, is the power of Goku and his race is that whenever they get beat up, when they heal, they come back stronger. So the more they get beat up, the stronger and stronger they get. And so he told me that because, well, to be honest, I was getting the shit beaten out of me. And so it kind of gave me a little bit of hope. And as I continue forward throughout my life, there's different animes and there's different challenges that these characters have to face where they're fighting like insane odds. Like, they're going into fights they know that they're going to lose, but they're doing it because they know they have to, or they're trying to save their friend, and they're going against insurmountable odds. And a lot of times as a fighter, that's what you feel like. When you know the national team members in your bracket, when you know the state champions in your bracket, when you know you're going to eventually have to meet whoever the reigning national person is that day, when it seems like all the odds are stacked in your favor, a lot of those times I'll think back to those little animes where the person is fighting impossible odds, but they still find a way to do it. Or they're about to fight that person, but because they had trained so much, they've gotten so much better. When they do fight the person, it's not a problem. They thought they were going to be better. The bad guy thought they were going to be a lot worse. And so the difference, like I said, the difference between this anime series is about growing strong and training and becoming more friendly and more wholesome as a person, but also becoming strong enough to protect your friends, versus Marvel, where the message kind of is you're born with your powers and you should use those powers for good. In one series, I can relate because I wasn't very good when I started. And in the other series, it's kind of like, well, that's cool if you have the powers, but if you don't have the powers, then you're an NPC and you're sitting on the sideline and you're just hoping Thanos doesn't click and you get ashed. But anyway, so that's it, guys. If you want to instill these kind of values, I suggest watching anime. A lot of great stories, a lot of great stories you can't really even tell in Western style movies. If you're in for Marvel, I mean, that's your guys' camp. But that's just me. That's day 51, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.